lately I've been taking on a practice of having a daily connecting and reflecting on astrologically where the planets are, and just spending a day with each planet, noticing where it is and what's happening with it, and just kind of tuning in and seeing what it has to offer me or teach me. And I was checking in with Saturn, which is retrograde in Pisces right now, which, if you don't know what that means, uh, it's not that important. I'll explain what's relevant for me. But Saturn is a planet that tends to be associated with hardship, with difficulty, with challenges, with adversities, and also with qualities of discipline and resilience. So it can be, it's the kind of two sides of what Saturn brings into our life. It brings in things like, disease, things that are beyond our control, not necessarily interpersonal conflict. That's more of a Mars energy from my perspective. But Saturn tends to bring out the bigger events that aren't necessarily anybody's fault, but they still hurt you in some way, or can, cause you setbacks. They can be debilitating, they can be limiting, but then Saturn also is the quality in us that rises to meet those limitations and learns to persevere, learns to build structures in spite of these hardships, to protect against them. So Saturn tends to be a really sad, sort of pessimistic planet. It's kind of the Eeyore planet. It's usually looking on the downside of things. It's usually expecting bad things to come, and it's usually not wrong, because there's always bad things coming. That's a part of living in this world. But then it's kind of in contrast to what I would think of as sort of the opposite, which is Jupiter, and you can even see their symbols are kind of upside down from each other. Jupiter's more the Tigger. Jupiter is very optimistic, very buoyant. All good things are coming. Everything happens for a reason, and that reason's for our higher good. And both perspectives have validity. They both can bring something important to our lives. But Saturn in Pisces is a particularly interesting one, because Pisces is traditionally ruled by Jupiter. So Pisces, which is much more the oceanic, sort of our kind of oneness, our state of connection with each other, but also a state of dreaming, and the sort of the quality of life that's more nebulous, that's more hard to grasp, more spiritual and less material. Saturn really, I don't think, has a good time there. And as I was reflecting on it, it was, I was thinking about, it's a sign where Saturn really struggles, and in part the struggle is it kind of has to learn, it has to humble itself and learn how to adapt to what the more Jupiterian ways of being, to kind of find things that work for Jupiter and make it work in the Saturny way. And one of the things that Saturn often is associated with is structures, is shapes, foundations, disciplines. And I think about that kind of energy in an ocean. There's not a lot of structure there. There's not a lot to hold on to. You're just being kind of tossed about, and if you don't have any kind of inner containment or personal containment, you can just be sort of dissolved in this great expanse, which I think is an interesting metaphor for how the spirit comes into this world. Spiritual worlds a lot of times are described as sort of a nebulous or expansive, not as hard, not as fixed as this material world. But in Pisces, I got this from astrologer Amanda Moreno, who I listened to her teach about Saturn and Pisces, and she talked a lot about, if you want to go deep into the ocean, you need to have a structure to protect you, or to go in your place that's protected, that can withstand the pressures of being that deep in the ocean. And I think, if we want to go from a place that's a little bit more nebulous and spiritual, but we're curious about what it's like to live on Earth, then you kind of need to get a body, basically. We have these bodies that house that spiritual essence that can withstand the shocks of living on this Earth. So that's a metaphor I think is interesting. But the other part of the metaphor that really came through for me is that Saturn in Pisces really has to learn how to hold it together when nothing is very fixed. It's all changeable, it's all very loose. And that's another challenge I think that we're dealing with collectively, with the dissolution of shared meaning, with people fragmenting into different ideologies, different ways of seeing the world, different stories about what's happening in the world. And one of the things that was surprising to me was to think about, animals or beings that live in the ocean develop, exoskeletons or other ways of containing shells, like things that protect their soft bodies and give really firm structure to hold those soft bodies in. And one of the things Saturn and Pisces sort of suggested in my reflecting upon it is that, these ideologies and these stories, these things that from the outside may look delusional, are kind of like a psychic shell that we can put ourselves in during difficult times. And I'm being cautious here because I think a lot of people, it's a common accusation if you don't agree with somebody's worldview to say it's delusional. And, and then of course certain things are delusions. The thing that I often go back to around delusions is that a delusion in the psychological sense is a belief about the world that's fixed and rigid and does not allow for scrutiny or examination. So somebody who's really in a state of delusion really will tell you this reality that they're in, and they are unable to reflect upon it or consider other explanations for what's going on. If the lights flicker at this particular moment, it's because of this, some agency spying on them, or the aliens flying overhead, and they won't even consider the possibility of maybe a power outage. It all fits into this worldview. And certainly when we see that delusion from the outside, we can see its limitations because it's unable to engage with the complexity and the vagueness of reality, which is the Piscean world. We live in this world. We never fully know what's true. We never fully know what's going on. There's always something new being revealed, or always a new thing we haven't considered. And even our best theories, there's a gap of unknowing that the more we move into that gap, the more it could change the entire theory. So that's one of the qualities of this world, that having very rigid, fixed thinking is a strange kind of protectiveness that we can encase ourselves in to get us through hard times. And I really believe that one of the reasons it's so prominent now is because we just went through COVID, and many of us are still going through COVID. Many of us still live in isolation and fear, or the after effects of having COVID, having long COVID. But that was a very traumatic, isolating time, and some people found solace in a story about the world that helped them to kind of protect themselves, to push away the vagueness, and to keep moving forward. Again, good, bad, or indifferent, it's just something that's true, and I think something that Saturn in Pisces is causing us, is inviting us to reflect upon, especially right now. Saturn's retrograde, so it's kind of more dissolving, moving backwards. It's harder to build those structures and maintain them. They're probably being challenged. And that is the other interesting thing about Saturn in Pisces, kind of learning the Jupiterian, because Jupiter consciousness, that really works. Like, if I believe everything's going to work out for me, it really tends to improve the chances of things working out for me. It helps me be more resilient. It helps me look at setbacks as opportunities, and it can kind of help magnify good opportunities that I might have missed otherwise if I was just expecting everything to go badly. So Saturn is kind of learning how to work with that, but I think part of Saturn's nature is about puncturing those holes in those things, and kind of showing the limits of those beliefs, and showing, you're not in control of everything. There's this whole domain of life that's not within your control, like a global pandemic, or disease, or death, or aging, or even to some extent war and politics, that it's not all within our personal control. And so they both bring us a great balance and wholeness, and we tend to align with one or the other. So all of that is kind of preluding to what I want to sit with today and offer you for the new moon in Cancer, which is sort of, it's not really connecting to Saturn in Pisces, but Cancer and Pisces are in a friendly angle to each other. They're both water signs. They both kind of get each other, but they're just different approaches to this like watery, emotional, psychic realm. But Cancer really emphasizes, as the crab, that ability to protect ourselves through having a strong shell, a strong exoskeleton, and pinchers, and just keeping all that vulnerable softness inside. But what I love about Cancer as an image too is that when it's time to grow, the crab will just chuck that shell and let it, it'll hit the limits of the shell it's currently in. It'll molt it away, and then it lives in this exquisite, excruciating vulnerability where it's just soft crab, but until it forms a new shell. But that's also its opportunity to grow and expand a lot. So the ideal is that it's able to let go of the old shell, take in all the growth that it's ready for, and then form a new protection, a new shell. And I think that speaks to both, the wisdom that we do need that protection to live in this world, to encounter other people who have shells and pinchers and defenses and attacks, but also that we can reach the limits. We can have these beliefs that maybe serve us or contain us, but then we get to a point where we can see that they're limiting our growth, and we need to let them go. But that this process really, I think, honors that it served its purpose. We needed it. We realize that we're limited and we need to let it go. And we also need to honor that means we're entering into this excruciating, kind of scary vulnerability and a rapid expansion before we find a new story, a new protection that will hold us in this expanded state and really serve us to be bigger. And that's a process, and we might not know how it looks. So for today, I just wanted to offer a little bit of a guided process, a guided meditation, if you will, to support you in that journey if you would like. So if you're not in a state where you can be comfortable and undisturbed and go inward, then I encourage you to pause this and come back later when you are. But otherwise, just take a moment and just, as always, maybe put your feet on the ground or just feel your connection to the ground. And your eyes open or closed, you might just kind of soften your gaze. And if it's okay to close your eyes and just kind of feel into your body, the darkness inside your body, just letting your breath slow down and completely empty, and then resting a moment before inhaling. Inhaling till your belly's full, and pausing, and then exhaling till you're completely empty. And as you're breathing and just sensing into yourself, maybe just sense your skin, the edges of your skin, the container of your body that keeps you safe, that keeps you whole, that gives you a vehicle through which you can engage and experience this world. Just really loving that body. And if you can't love it, just noticing what feelings are here and just honoring that too. Like, these are all feelings that are part of having this body right now. And you're just kind of asking yourself, your whole self, to bring attention to some kind of protection, some belief, some story, some way of containing your experience that you're really ready to let go of. Or maybe you're not quite ready to let go of, but maybe you're just curious about and ready to get to know a bit more. And just inviting awareness of that. Perhaps you feel that container, that shell, that skeleton around your body, or maybe around your energy bodies if you have a sense of that. Maybe there's a sensation in your body that goes with that container, that shell. Or maybe there's an image that comes to you that represents that protection, or maybe just a knowing. And just take a moment, just sense into that. Just see what you notice about it, how it's showing up right now. And just noticing how you're feeling towards this protection, this shell. Perhaps there's dislike, or anger, or frustration, or just a sense of how it limits you. And just take a moment, just really acknowledge that, and make sure you understand that you see the limitations in the way it's failed you, or hurt you, or otherwise impeded your growth. And if you have a sense of that, just really letting that frustration or that feeling of dislike, just letting it know you really get that. And just seeing if it can kind of give you some room. Just trusting that you know that this is a limitation. And maybe just see if you can invite in an energy of appreciation. And just see, or even asking this protection if it could help you to see the ways it's really served you in your life. It's helped you, structured you, gotten you through difficult times. And just really letting that protection know what you're getting about this, and really making sure it feels understood about how hard it's worked for you, how much it's done for you, how well it's served you. And just thanking that, and also asking that to give you some space too, so you can just be with this. And just being with the knowing of how it served you, and the knowing of how it hasn't served you or doesn't serve you anymore. Just see if it feels like the right time to let this go. It doesn't have to be. It could keep serving you. And if it isn't the right time, just asking, what is this protection, this shell, this container needing to really keep working for you? What would help it? But if it does feel like now's the time to let go, just imagine, in whatever way makes sense, that you can step out of this shell, this container, that you can molt it off, you could open it up, you could step outside of it. And just with ease and gratitude, just really helping this part of you to let go of this exterior, this shell, this protection that no longer serves. And just letting it dissolve in the ocean, or be carried away so it can serve some other purpose. And just noticing how that feels in your body to let go of this old armor, this shell, this protection. Feeling this possibility for expansion, also feeling this vulnerability, this sensitivity. And just seeing how you would like to expand with this opportunity. What would you like to invite more into your body, into your life? How would you like to be that the old way didn't make possible? And just see if you can imagine breathing in that possibility into yourself for more kindness, more patience, more courage, more vitality, whatever feels right. Maybe feeling yourself start to expand as you breathe that in. And if you don't know yet, that's okay too. Just knowing there's this possibility. And that right now we're at the beginning of a cycle, or the next month, the next 28 days, you'll have this opportunity to keep expanding and bringing in new possibilities and discovering more of what's possible without that old shell. And also in this time, you'll have the opportunity to build a new shell, to find a new story, a new container that can keep you safe and held together, but supporting this expansion and this growth. And just asking this protection, or this vulnerable part of you, and what it needs from you over the next several days, next month, to help with that. If there's some practice you can do to check in with it or support it, you could put something like a candle that you could light every day, or put something in a place where you'll always see it, just to remind you of this part. Maybe you could check in. Maybe there's a place on your body that will connect you to it, so you can send some love and connection. And just really thanking this part for its vulnerability and its courage. And if that protection wasn't ready to be let go of today, you could thank yourself still too for the vulnerability and the courage of just being able to look at it with more clarity and get to know it better. They're both really valuable practices. And so as you're ready, just really thanking these qualities again, thanking yourself, and letting this go in whatever way feels right, bringing your attention back to your body, to the ground, maybe opening your eyes if they're closed and moving your body a little bit, feeling your edges. Let's take a moment, tap your feet on the ground, tap your hands together, tap your hands on your face. And just really thanking you for being here and appreciating this opportunity. Make sure you drink water today, and I wish you well. Have a